your hands. If members who are virtually viewing this meeting could raise your electronic hands. And for members in the presentation room, raise your hand, and I will try and respond to these as they're raised. Thank you. We're not expecting a fire drill in the presentation room this afternoon, so if you see us heading towards the doors, we'll be making our way to the nearest exit. In the presentation room, we have officers and myself as the member present. Moving on to agenda item 2. Members, are there any declarations? If there are, what is the item number and the interest, please?
I don't see any, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. So moving on to agenda item 3A, which is the risk register monitoring 2025 to 2026. These can be found in your information packs, pages 5 to 45. Officers, do you have anything further to add to the reports, please?
I'm only to add, Chair, that there's a detailed covering report articulating all the changes and amendments that have been made to the strategic risk register since it was last presented. So it's been through that process with the strategic leadership team and CMP and prior to coming here to scrutiny, and it'll be going to the Governance and Audit Committee on July the 15th.
Lovely, thank you, Nolan. Members, do you have any questions for the officers, please? Councillor Sarah Thomas, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so I've noticed that the risks seem to be sort of increasing into the red area, and the numbers are going up, and the targets are quite low. Are we doing anything to actively try and get those numbers back down where they need to be?
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. I think part of the discussions that we're having at the strategic leadership team is around understanding what our kind of target risk score are for those strategic risks, and then what additional mitigation actions need to be taken in order to reduce the residual score to those target risks. So that's an ongoing piece of work. That element is something that's relatively new to the strategic risk register with us in terms of how we actually score the strategic risks. So it is work in progress, but it's about identifying additional mitigation actions if that's deemed necessary to reduce the residual score to the right level.
Thank you, Norman. Councillor Thomas, do you have anything you want to come back with?
No, I think they're higher now than they were the last time I looked at this, about a quarter ago, I suppose. And it's good to know that we're working in that direction. Hopefully, we'll see some improvement for the next one.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Thank you, Norman. Councillor Susan Patterson, next, please.
Thank you, Chair. Right at the top of the list on the register, the coal tips and quarries item. Is this in the same position? Have we received any money yet from Westminster regarding this? Because there was an announcement about help for coal tips. Is this in the same position after that, or was it written before?
Councillor Patterson, we're going to put you across to Nicola Pearce.
Of course, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, we were in receipt of some funding from Welsh Government before the announcement in the most recent spending review. So that has enabled us to undertake work in terms of inspections of the tips that we've got in our area. It also enabled us to undertake work on one specific tip, which was one of our highest risk tips. So that work has been undertaken, and that cost us £12 million, which was funded by Welsh Government just for one tip alone. So we've got a significant number of tips. So we've got a significant liability associated with them. So whilst the funding is very, very helpful, enable us to minimise the risk, it's not sufficient for us to undertake actual works to all of those tips. It enables us to monitor them and analyse the risks associated with each individual tip, and we're focusing primarily on the highest risk tips at the moment.
Thank you, Nicola. And have we received as much money as we think we're going to on this?
The money, we have to apply for it each year. So the funding is allocated. The £118 million, which was referred to, is over a 3-year period for all authorities in Wales. So we have to put forward every year what our ask is. and then depending on who puts what from which authority in Wales and where the risks lie will depend on whether we get any or all of that money. So it's an we're dealing with it on an annual basis.
Thank you, Nicola. So I'm presuming that having a hierarchy at our disposal to know which ones of us we consider the most dangerous is helpful.
Yes.
Yeah,
It
lovely.
is.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Are you happy with the response, Councillor Patterson?
Yes, thank you, Chair.
Lovely, thank you very much for that. Councillor Sonia Reynolds next, please.
As I understand it, we are one of the areas with the largest number of tips, as I understand it. However, this applies to quarry tips as well, Nicola, if that's possible, please.
Yes, it's not just coal tips, it's quarry tips as well. So we've got 617 tips in Neath Talbot. So we have got the highest number of tips overall. And we've got 6, I believe, of the category D tips. So they are the tips that are of the biggest risk to the environment and to the public. So whilst we've got the largest overall number, we haven't got the highest number of high risk tips.
Would it be possible, Chair, to ask if they could reshare the list of prioritisation of tips? I know we had it a while back, but we haven't recently.
No problem at all. We can circulate that list, no problem.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Councillor Patterson, your arm is raised again. Do you have another question?
If you don't mind, Chair, yeah, it's to Andrew Jarrett, this one. It's regarding the use of HMOs for housing of homeless people. And I just, because I'm not on oh gosh, that committee, I beg your pardon, my mind is going wrong. Because I'm not on that committee, could you give me a brief update on where we are? Because we are changing the way we are doing business, I believe. So I would like to ask him that.
Andrew, you're online. Are you ready to come in when you are?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Councillor Patterson, for the question. I mean, when you say we're changing our approach, I'm not sure what you mean by that.
Well, this is the problem. I heard something was happening, but I'm not quite sure what.
Okay, so we're moving from a concentration on providing temporary accommodation to providing more permanent, longer term accommodation overall. Yeah. And the quick movement of people who do need to go into temporary accommodation out as quickly as possible. That has been, it's proven difficult because we need the properties to put people in, both temporary and permanent. But we are starting to make some progress along those lines. It's slow going because we've still got a lot of pent up demand for our homelessness services. Yeah. So, at some stage, I'm hopeful that I'll bring back to council a strategic intent to move out of use of hotels for homeless people, but I'm not in a position to be able to do that at the moment. That does create, as you'll see on the strategic risk register, that tension between us using hotels for not for the purposes that they're intended for, but our intent is not to make that's not going to be our permanent position. As I say, I'm hoping to come back to you in the not too distant future with a plan that says we're not going to be using hotels and the like for homeless accommodation.
Oh, thank you, Andrew. That's great news. And I hope that we do make swift progress on that. And I'll be interested to come to the committee when you are ready to give that report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Thank you, Andrew, for your response. Members, any further questions? Councillor Simon Lloyd, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to come in at this point, just in terms of the Cabinet's perspective of the risk that we hold within the council. I'm actually, I was going to say that we're delighted, but I'm not delighted to see change within this form. So items going from green to amber to amber to red to red to amber to green to amber to green, because that actually shows that we're actually taking the risk of the council very seriously. And I look at SR06, for example. regarding budget. And it's really good to flag that up on there, that if there are insufficient capital revenue resources for 25-26 and the council fails to take account of democratic changes accurately, then the council will have to agree priorities, raise council tax and make cuts in jobs and services to deliver a balanced budget. I think it's really important that these kind of items are raised. They're on the risk register and they're there for discussion at any time. So I'd like to thank Noelwyn and his team for the work that they've done in bringing this risk element of the council's operations to the head a bit more than perhaps they were currently. Cabinet have not tasked but asked Noelwyn to go away and bring this back in a better format, and I think this now does that. Just wanted to mention that. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Councillor Sonia Reynolds again.
Thank you for that, Simon. Can I ask if income generation features in that at all, or is it a focus just on money coming from government sources and council tax residents?
Should I answer that, Chair?
Okay, Councillor Noel.
Yeah, it's wherever we can raise income and revenue from, Sonia. You know, it isn't all about, we have various sources where we can raise revenue for the next financial year, and it's important to look at income generation. That's clearly one of the other sources that we can have funding from. I met several weeks ago with our, I don't think his title is income generation officer, but I chat with the gentleman, the officer that works for us that manages that process. And hopefully we can have a follow-up meeting in the next couple of weeks as well to see how we've taken that forward with obviously the directors and things like that are going on. So you're quite right. It is important to look at income generation as well as the sources of funding that we get. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Councillor Reynolds for your question. Councillor Susan Patterson, please.
Thank you, Chair. Again to Simon, just because he's stepped up there. Simon, when we do make more charges, things like that, rather than income generation in what I would deem it to be the definition of income generation, income generation on charges. What is the Cabinet's view on trying to make that as equitable across the county borough as possible?
I think there are two things there, aren't there? So income generation is income generation, fees and charges, which I think about, which is probably something different. You know, we do not wish to raise fees and charges more than they need to be, but they need to be appropriate and in line with other, you know, we need to agree a set of fees and charges in terms of percentage rises or whatever it looks like, that are broadly aligned with other areas across the county. So we look at car parking because it's been a specific issue recently. You know, we need to be, you know, mindful of what that looks like in the round as well, you know, and sometimes it needs a bit of consultation with the public to get that right. Right. Sometimes it needs a little bit of sense and common sense approach to it as well. And I think going forward, that's essentially what we need to look at. We understand that there is a need to bring more revenue into the local authority budget, and whether that's through fees and charges or whether it's more appropriate to do that through income generation is sort of a balance and the priorities that we as the council members have got to agree, I guess. Okay, so it's higher up in your psyche then, yeah. But it has a relationship with the residents of the county, so yes, it has to. Yes, of course. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Thank you, Councillor Noel, for your response as well, please. Members, any more questions? I can't see any, so members are asked to note the report. Thank you. So agenda item 3B, which is the National Residents Survey. These can be found on your information packs, 47 to page 75. Officers, do you have anything further to add to the report, please?
We could just give some context then, Chair. So the National Residents Survey, Cabinet approved for us to go out to consult with our residents, and that was on May the 26th. When we brought the corporate strategy for 25 to 27 to 28 forward to scrutiny on June the 11th, I think that was, we noted that within the corporate strategy moving forward now there were elements of that residence survey being incorporated so that we could demonstrate that we were taking in the views of our residents with regards to how we deliver our services. The residence survey went live on June the 13th, I believe, and I can ask Anita to come in with some more of the detail for members if they so wish.
I've not got a lot to add other than obviously we will be hoping to come back to members. We're hoping to have some results for September, so we'll be hoping to bring a paper back to members with those results, and be a bit of an omission on how we should put that in the original cabinet report. So.
Thank you, Noreen, and thank you, Anita, for that description. Councillor Patterson, please.
Do beg your pardon, Chair, me again. When we get the consultation and we've had all the data, how often is it updated?
So this is being undertaken by the WLGA. So all local authorities in Wales had the opportunity to partake in this national residence survey, and we were able to add some additional questions that we thought were relevant as well into that survey. And the intention is that it happens annually, Councillor Patterson, right, so that we will, from this first initial tranche of survey, we will have benchmark data moving forward then to see how, in terms of what we deliver as an authority, whether we're actually making a difference and how the residence survey changes maybe over time. So it will be an annual survey, and like I said, it now plays a key part of our ongoing monitoring in terms of the delivery of the corporate strategy as well.
And if I may, when you get the results back, what percentage of the population, I mean, we've got 140,000 residents living approximately in our county borough, what weighting would you put to a percentage, say like 10% replying?
I'll ask Anita to come in some, please.
Thanks, Councillor Patterson. Obviously, it's the first year of running the survey for us. Basically, it consists of closed questions and asks people about specific services and living in their area, which we would hope that people feel quite strongly about. We are hoping to get quite a decent response rate. At present, 9 local authorities have already run the survey, and a further 8 are running or planning to run it. So in terms of response rates that other people are getting and that we are aware of for other authorities that have reported on their findings, they are getting between 0.73% and 3.1% of the population over 16 years. So for Neath Talbot, that would look anywhere between 863 and 3665 responses. So if we compare that 3665 to other surveys that we've run in the past, that would be quite a decent response rate. Obviously, we'd be hoping to get higher than that, and the higher the better. But that's sort of, that's where we're looking at aiming at the moment, because that's what other authorities are getting. So we're hoping to equal or better that at the minute.
I'm all for consultations, but that seems to be a very poor response. And obviously, the members of the public have no duty to respond to anything that we put out. We would like the information, but it's not on them to give it to us. So if it doesn't creep up higher than that, how much weighting will be added to any decision of the council by that poor response?
If I can come in there, Chair. I think, like we've already said, it's the first time we've run this residence survey. And I think it'll be an important benchmark for us as an indicator in terms of residents' views of the services we provide. I think local elected members have a role to play as well to encourage residents to complete the residence survey. Our internal comms team will obviously be running the external communications to promote the fact that the residence survey is there, needs to be completed. So we've got a joint responsibility, I guess, to try and get as many residents to respond to that survey. I think in terms of the value that it brings, it is another data set that we use amongst a whole host of other data sets when we look at feedback from residents. So there'll be a lot of work happening in the education department with Andrew Jarvis Social Services in terms of some of the work they do in terms of directly communicating with residents as well. So it's just one piece of the jigsaw, Councillor Patterson, in terms of some of the data we look at around our residents' views of the services we provide, but an important one.
Absolutely. So when we get pieces of work from the council and we look back to the response on the data that's come from this survey, it will be pro rata sort of looked at as if, you know, if you get 50 people responding negatively out of the 800 that, or 600 did you say? Sorry, I can't remember. You know, it's still not a lot of people. So I just like to make that point really, and I'll leave it there. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Councillor Sonia Reynolds, please.
Thank you. I'm just, following on from Councillor Patterson, presumably, I get the impression, maybe wrongly, that this is being run by the WLGA, and if we sign into their modules, it's relatively free, as it were. It's not costing us a fortune.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Reynolds. Yes, so it's a free offer to all 22 local authorities in Wales. As I said earlier, I think the 17 have signed up so far, so 19 have actually run the survey, and there's another, it's a maths now, another 8 who are either in the process of running it or who have recently completed the survey. It has been developed by WLGA and Data Cymru, but with input from officers around Wales. Obviously, there is an element of it has to be something that will be of use to every local authority. So there may be some things that we might have really wanted to home in on that we didn't have the ability to because of the nature of the survey. The questions are all closed, so they will tell us the what, they won't tell us the why. But what it might do, it might prompt us to have a look or want to have a look more closely at certain elements and then follow up with some more qualitative activities around, maybe something that we didn't expect to come in. But yes, it is a free offer at the moment. We can add in additional questions at a cost, but they will depend on obviously the nature of the questions and how many, because part of that cost would be for Data Cymru to set up the questions and to cleanse the data when it comes back in.
Thank you. Can I follow on from that, please, Chair? I'm aware, say, given that and given the limitations of it, it's free. So I'm, obviously, you don't argue, you get some information from it. I'm assuming Councillor Patterson asked, if you get sort of 50 responses about X, you might follow up on that. There are going to be some occasions or many occasions where the interpretation is very different as to whether it's a rural or an urban area. And how things are interpreted when they answer what's sufficient, what's not sufficient, etc. For example, when I glance through this, and I've addressed surveys before that ask this question, there are enough green spaces in my local area. It's a lovely question, but there's a lot of green space in my area. It's a very different way of thing to respond to than for Port Talbot, for example. A resident of Port Talbot or Britain Ferry. And I'm assuming if you get 50 responses about a particular issue, there's an address as to where they've come from. And the question is looked at in relation to where those responses feature.
Yeah, absolutely, Councillor Reynolds. Obviously, we're asking a set of equalities and demographic questions along with the questionnaire at the end of that. So that would enable us to filter the responses. Obviously, going back to what Councillor Patterson said, that might then end up with a very, very small number. So that we couldn't rely on very small numbers, but we do have the ability to look into that and take those things into consideration and do those cross tabs.
Thank you. And the analysis of the data that comes in from this, is that done centrally by WLGA or does that come down to us?
No, Councillor Reynolds. So what will happen is the survey will close on the 10th of August. There'll be 2 weeks then where Data Cymru will cleanse the data for us. And then we will have access to a dashboard where we will be able to go in and analyse the results. And so that will be down to us and that will be tailored to our analysis as much as we can tailor it with what we have.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Very helpful.
Thank you, members, for your questions. Councillor Noyle, please.
Sorry, Chair, for coming back in again. Just wanted to make a comment, I think. This falls under my portfolio. So before the before the post went out on social media, it was sent to me in the link. So I undertook the survey. I'm not a massive fan of surveys. I think in some circumstances they are a necessary evil. But I undertook this survey and it was easy to do, if that makes sense. And I think most of the questions were relevant. What we'll take out of that in terms of the questions that Suzanne asked about the weighting, again, it'll determined by the number of people that respond to that and engage with it. I also think Sonia's right in terms of interpretation. But if we didn't take on board this WLGA offer of a survey effectively, then people would say, well, you didn't consult with us. So there's that balance to be had between not consulting and consulting, and then not having enough information because people don't engage with you against those that do engage with you. So I think it's a good thing. I think we'll need to see the results out of that survey and maybe take some good and some bad things out of it as well, positive and negative things out of it, and see what that looks like, and have some member feedback into that as well. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Noel. Members, are there any further questions? I can't see anything online. Okay, thank you. Well, members are asked to note the report. Moving on to agenda item 4, which is to consider items from the Scrutiny Forward Work Programme. You'll be pleased to know there are no items to consider from the Scrutiny Committee Forward Work Programme today. So moving on to agenda item 5A, which is the Strategy and Corporate Services and Finance Service Business Plans for 2025 to 2026. These can be found in your agenda packs, pages 77 to 187. Officers, do you have any further to add to the report, please?
Only briefly, Chair. So when we brought the corporate strategy 2025-2028 through to scrutiny and through Cabinet, we articulated that it would be underpinned by heads of service delivery plans that would in themselves come to scrutiny. I know my heads of service, so Sheena, Chris and Craig, have gone through this in some detail in the forward work planning meeting with members that you've already had, but they're all here today to answer any questions you might have specifically on the service delivery plans.
Thank you, Noreen. Members, any questions for the officers, please? Councillor Reynolds first, then, please.
I beat her in this time. Can I apologise to officers and cabinet members for lack of notification of questions on this particular occasion before the meeting, because it was a busy week last week and we had the pre-brief, and normally, I took the weekend to do a bit of reading, so I wasn't able to sort of pre-notify, and I was in Llandudno for most of the weekend, so it was a busy weekend too. What I wanted to ask Nolan on the first report, page 59, I think it is, or from page 59, general questions really. One of them is, having attended with run by the WLGA, a very interesting discussion, particularly with the leader of Newport Council on AI and integration of systems at the weekend. Do all of our systems integrate, or are we working hard in that direction? And particularly, are the AI systems being considered in the various departments linked as much as they can, please?
Take it, so.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Reynolds, for the question. We're doing a lot of work in the AI space at the moment across the council, and we are just concluding a pilot with all service areas where each of the service leads have been given Microsoft Copilot to use within their service area to see the types of use cases they can sort of generate out of that. We've put some resource into it from digital services perspective to help facilitate that, because part of this is trying to show the art of the possible, and quite often, in service areas, they may not know what they don't know. So we've got some capacity and they're actively driving that conversation and supporting them. We've also brought Microsoft on board to support with their specialists to, again, help with that sort of awareness raising. There is more to be done in terms of linking our core back office systems across the council, and that's partly the work of the data unit that we have within digital services as well, where they're actively looking at the different data sets that we have for argument's sake, across things like address in our gazetteer with the council tax system academy, and making sure that wherever data can be linked together to provide a more joined up holistic view of the information we hold as a council, we're doing that. The benefit of doing that with the systems then allows you to really start to put generative artificial intelligence over the top of that to drive really in-depth views of understanding the data, but then playing that back to the service areas because it may inform how they want to deliver their services in the future. We're also then delivering quite a lot of robotics process automation. So where there's opportunities to streamline some of the human interactions with some of the processes that we have, which might be very paper-based processes at the moment, large volumes of data being processed. We're bringing in RPA agents to help streamline that, to free the staff up to focus on more value work. So there's a number of different strands to it. Within my business plan on our pipeline at the moment, there's a whole work stream around generative artificial intelligence. So this will be something that will feature very heavily going forwards for us.
Thank you very much, Noel. And it's an interesting area, but it's hard getting everything linked. Obviously, where we're doing that. Sorry, that was Chris, I think, rather than Noel. I'm difficult to see in the. You only get little pictures of people. Right. I also wanted to ask about the medium-term plan. So moving on to Hugh's area, if possible. I was, I've been at the various meetings surprised to see this because at regular budget meetings, for the last 3 years, we've been told about the long-term plan. I've been a bit confused as to how you get to a long-term plan without a medium-term plan. So, or is the long-term plan overall projections only in reality?
I think to date, Councillor Reynolds, we've obviously been struggling with the long-term or even medium-term plan because of the lack of any sort of clarity from Welsh Government about multi-year settlements, which is, we've had multiple scenarios around long-term planning, but it's difficult to make decisions around it until you've got a bit more certainty. We are hoping now that the UK Government have given the Welsh Government a multi-year settlement, we're going to get a 3-year forecast, so we can then put a 3-year plan together and start looking at those longer term sort of interventions. So that's our current thinking, is a 3-year medium term financial plan. And once we have some more clarity from Welsh Government.
Thank you. I think they're getting more clarity in their longer term budgets as well, which will make life easier overall. Thank you. I've got some others, but I'll wait till after Councillor Paterson, if I may.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Thank you, Hugh, and thank you to Chris for your responses. Councillor Paterson, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. On page 79, under workforce impacts, is the short paragraph which says about the legacy of the pandemic, and that our workforce is continuing to have a legacy of that pandemic. And I just wondered, how long do you think this will last? This sort of hangover from the pandemic?
What page is that on? Sorry, Councillor.
79. The progress described in this report was achieved while the workforce continued to respond to and continue to recover from the impacts of the pandemic.
Councillor Paterson,
Hi, Sheena.
we think that is an old paragraph that shouldn't be in there, to be perfectly honest, because I think reasonably we don't think the workforce is still recovering from the pandemic and feeling the effects of it. So apologies for that.
No worries then. No, thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Paterson. Councillor Reynolds, anything that wasn't covered in there you want to bring up, please?
Yeah, only one small point to make. If you're also on the financial plan, just looking at it, page 121, I think it is. Just, for very interesting looking at the overall actions, etc., and the documentation against cross-cutting goals. Can I suggest that we also tick under the last one, ensuring suppliers are paid, that it's relevant to the cross-cutting goal, cost of living and poverty prevention, because they've got to pay their staff as well. So minor point, but just something we need to consider. It's not just us paying our staff on time.
Yep, absolutely. Councillor Reynolds, take that on board and make sure it's updated for the next iteration. Thank you. Good point.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Thank you, Hugh, for your response as well. Members, any more questions? I can't see anything online. Oh, Councillor Noyle, sorry. Do you want to come back in, Simon?
Yes, it seems to be a bit of a theme going on here with Councillor Patterson and Councillor Reynolds, the Councillor myself. But there you are. I just wanted to just say thank you to Nolwenn again for bringing this to us. So Nolwenn, Chris, Sheena, Hugh, Craig and myself met and we went through this several weeks ago. And I am delighted to see this come forward because it sets out what Nolwenn's team are doing in the background. It's one of those service delivery areas that we don't necessarily see a lot of the tangible works that they do, but they are there anyway. We discussed it. No, I've mentioned that once previously because we mentioned it last year at the budget when we were looking to make savings and cuts from directorates where perhaps we didn't see what they were doing, but they are necessary for the effective running and governance of the council. So I'm really grateful that this has come forward from Nolwenn's team once again. In terms of the financial situation, which Councillor Reynolds brought up, it is really good, hopefully, that the UK government will be given an indication of a multi-year settlement to the Welsh government in Cardiff, and then that will filter down to us as the local authorities. I think it's vitally important, whoever is in charge, wherever they're in charge, that they're able to see a bit into the future. They have a bit of a vision as to what it looks like, because we will only be reacting to situations when we get single year settlements. But if we're able to forecast, plan, and look ahead, then that can only be a good thing for every council, and specifically ours as Neath Talbot Council, I suppose. That's all I wanted to mention, Chair. Thank you very much for letting me come back in.
Thank you, Councillor Noyle. Councillor Reynolds, is yours a response, a question to response off Councillor Noyle?
Just to say, no theme, Councillor Noyle. Suzanne and I haven't even managed to talk to each other since these papers have been out about this sort of thing. And we tend to look at the information supplied. We don't get the same level of information as you. So we look and pick up on things that leap out at us from a page and, look to scrutinise them. Thank you.
Chair, can I just reply to that? Because in no way did I mean a theme as in you planned this. I didn't mean that in any way, shape or form. Just the fact that you both given and then me. So forgive me if that came across wrong from me, but that is all I meant to say. Thank you, Chair, for letting me say that.
Yeah, thank you, members, for your questions. I can't see any further online, so I'm going to ask that members are asked to note the report, please. Moving on to agenda item 5B, which is to resolve to exercise the powers set out in section 35 of the Wellbeing of Future Generations Wales Act 2015, being the designated Overview and Scrutiny Committee for this purpose, as approved by Council in May 2015. Can I have a proposer and a seconder, please? Yeah. Well, I'm happy to propose. Could I have a seconder, please?
Happy to second, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Henton. Can members please indicate if they wish to abstain?
Thanks, no abstentions, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this recommendation is supported. So moving on to agenda item 5C, is Neath Talbot Public Services Board, the Wellbeing Plan Annual Report of 2024 to 2025. Agenda pack pages 189 to 224. Officers, do you have anything further to add to the report, please?
Just give a brief introduction, that's okay, Chair.
Thank you.
I'm Vanessa Dale, I'm the Public Services Board Coordinator for Neath Talbot. So the Public Services Board's Wellbeing Plan was published in 2023, May 2023. It's a 5-year plan, so it runs to 2028, And the PSB have adopted the council's wellbeing objectives for the duration of this plan. So this annual report you've got today is the second annual report for the plan, and it gives an overview of how the PSB are working towards these wellbeing objectives. There's 6 work streams altogether that fall under the wellbeing objectives. They provide 6 monthly updates to the PSB, and the content of that is what you see today in the report. So there is a statutory duty for the Council's Scrutiny Committee to look at this report before it's published. It's due to be published by the end of July, and that is set out in section 35 of the Wellbeing Future Generations Act, as it's mentioned on the agenda today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa. Members, any questions, please? Can't see anything online. Can I? Councillor Reynolds, sorry, missed you. Do you want to come in?
That's all right. I was late coming in, and I have to admit I just haven't managed to go through every part of this report. I'm assuming, given the nature of it, the long-term nature of it, that things are moving forward, and I've just tried to check that. I wanted to make a query about the antisocial behaviour, progress and outcomes. One of the things that I know a lot of us meet in our communities is issues that if antisocial behaviour isn't reported by 101 direct to the police, and because actions don't immediately happen from that, a lot of residents stop reporting or don't understand they've got to engage in that way. And in other cases, like some in my own area, we have a very able PCSO who goes in, but it doesn't actually get onto the records. That when antisocial behaviour then needs dealing with, one of the problems we have in moving forward in any sort of multi-agency approach is that the police don't have an ongoing record of it, so won't engage. Is there any way that that can be considered and taken forward to the to the progress on that area, or am I completely out of line in putting that view here?
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. I don't think Andrew Giles on the call any longer, but we can certainly take that point back to our colleagues in South Wales Police and raise it at the next PSB strategic board meeting that I chair. See what response we get from that. You feed that back to then, Councillor Patterson, in due course. That's okay.
Getting your own back,
sorry. I wasn't intentionally referring to my another name because you've been too Chris.
I know, but just amusing. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reynolds. Any more questions, members? I can't see anything online at present. Councillor Patterson, please.
Sorry, Chair, it's not a question, it's a comment. It's on page 204, in which our council has set a good practice example for Wales neurodivergence acknowledgement. So being that this is one of the things that is on the rise, I think that's worth noting that this council is facing that head on and has got that good practice. So just well done. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson. Officer Andrew Thomas, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for those comments, Suzanne. As all of you will know, we've just been through an Eston inspection for local government education services. I literally received the draft report today. It is in confidence at the moment. It will be out later in July. But I think I can safely say that there'll be some good news in the report around what you've just raised, Suzanne. So I'll be delighted to report that in due course.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Andrew. I can see no further questions, so I'm going to ask members to note the report on pages 192 of the agenda pack. I'm happy to propose. Could I have a seconder, please?
I would second, Chair.
Just before you come in, Councillor Reynolds raised her hand, so thank you, Councillor Reynolds, for seconding. Members, can I ask you to indicate if you wish to abstain from the vote, please?
I can see no abstentions, Chair.
Thank you, Alison. Members, if you do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it that this recommendation is supported. Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 6. The selection of items for future scrutiny, pages 2 to 5 are 242 of your agenda packs. To go through the forward work programme and any further items which members wish to consider. Alison, please.
Thank you, Chair. So we've recently undertaken our forward work programme session. We had officers in attendance as well. So members identified their priority areas for the forthcoming year. So we are now speaking with officers to determine how we can take those forward and populate our forward work programme accordingly. Members today in front of them have a copy of the Cabinet Forward Work Programme and can see reports which fall under the remit of this committee. Should members wish to add any of these reports to scrutiny, if you could let either myself or the Chair know so that we can add them or raise them in today's meeting. And members, as soon as the draft Forward Work Programme is done, we will circulate it via email so that members can all see the forthcoming items for the Scrutiny Committee.
Thank you, Alison. So moving on to agenda item 7, which is any urgent items at the discretion of the chairperson pursuant to sections 100BA 6B of the Local Government Act of 1972. I'd like to inform you there are no urgent items. Thank you very much for your attendance today, both members and officers in the room today. Thank you and enjoy your afternoon. Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Thanks all.
Thank you.